All right, hello Year 9. What we're going to do today is we're going to leave lesson 2 behind because that's food tests. And obviously you can't do that at home because that involves chemicals. So we're going to move on to lesson 3, which is about biological molecules. So you remember when we started this topic, there may have been a thing that was talking about what is a scientific model and why are they helpful. So what we're looking at today is how we can use models of biological models to help biological molecules to help us understand things. So if we think of biological molecules, we might look at the periodic table. The periodic table is obviously you've done about in chemistry, but we need it in biology as well because anything that is a molecule is made up of atoms, and obviously anything that's just made of one type of atom is called an element. So if everything's just made of just carbon atoms, then it's going to be carbon. So when it comes to biological molecules, you have a molecule is just two or more atoms joined by chemical bonds, and biological is just anything that is alive. So if we're talking about a biological molecule, they are molecules with structural or functional roles in living organisms. Now, for the ones we're going to look at, which we've been looking at over the last few lessons, carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins, they are generally made up of three main elements. From carbohydrates, so you think of carbohydrates. So the first bit you can get is carbo, which is carbon, so hydrogen, and then the eighth bit actually refers to the oxygen. So you could probably break it down. So carbohydrates, you probably remember, can be divided into the simple ones and the more complicated ones. So carbohydrates only contain carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, and some of them are simple. And these are ones that taste sweet, so simple sugars. And they've usually got the word saccharides, meaning sweet tasting. And they're generally made up of single unit or a double unit. So these are the ones you'd need if you're carrying out, let's say you're doing lots of exercise and you have lots of Lucozade or something sugary, gives you a rapid source of energy. And all these things, if you think about them, they're very simple, so they are soluble, which means they dissolve very well. Now, some of you, if you want to extend upon that, might link that back to osmosis and think about why is that important for things to be soluble, and why could it be difficult if they are soluble? What would that affect the osmosis balance? But you don't need to know. Don't worry about that too much if you don't get it. Now, we can show these. Now, these are models. So remember at the beginning of the lesson, we're talking about models. This is what glucose looks like. This bit here, so we draw it out like a big chain, and you may have drawn something like this in chemistry before. So it's just a straight chain, and it's got 6 carbons, it's got 6 oxygens, and it's got 12 hydrogens. And it's if you just remember that it's a 2-to-1 ratio of the hydrogens. If you remember you've got 6 carbons, you've got to have 6 oxygens, which leaves you with 12 hydrogens. Okay, now we can represent it in this stick chain, but more often than not, it comes round and it forms like a hexagonal shape. So we've got 5 carbons going around and 1 carbon going off the side and an oxygen in the top corner, and it's simply referred to as a hexagon. Now, sometimes this is our simple sugar, so sometimes you've got 2 of these joined together, but if we join lots of them together, you get different types of carbohydrates. So like I said, if you've got 2 together, you can form maltose. If you've got glucose and fructose together, you form sucrose. If you get lots of them joining together, that's when you start to form things like starch and cellulose. So like hundreds, thousands of these can be joined together, and you get a starch molecule. So starch, glycogen, and glucose, they're large molecules, and for these ones, they're non-soluble, so they're used as energy storage. So in your body, you have glycogen stored in your muscles, and plants store things as starch. And cellulose, if you think about what we did in plant biology, when we did about the cell wall, cellulose is going to be what's found in the cell wall. So that's what gives it its structure. And then these are insoluble. So think about why do we use those as storage rather than the sugars? Okay, so that is talking about carbohydrates. Next ones are lipids, and these are sometimes we've got lipids, which sometimes your fats and your oils, but these are made from carbon, hydrogen, oxygen again, but a lower proportion of oxygen. So this fat that's found in lamb and beef, tristerin, you can see you've got lots of carbon, lots of hydrogens, and lots of oxygens. Don't worry about this. You don't need to know this formula, but you just need to know they're made from carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. And they're large molecules, and they're made up from 2 units. You have your fatty acids, which are these things here, and you have your glycerols. And generally, fats, which are lipids that are solid at room temperature. So think of butter, think of anything that's kind of, when you see it, solid at room temperature. And then oil are lipids that are liquid at room temperature. And you use these in your body for energy storage, keep you warm. If you were, let's say, a walrus, you'd use them for buoyancy. You're not a walrus, though, luckily. Amazing to have those types of tusks, though. But you're not. They're waterproofing and they're really, really good. They're a structural component of all cells. You have them in your cell walls. So lipids, that's what they are. And then proteins, again, made from carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, but this time we have a little bit of nitrogen there. Now, these are large molecules, really big, and they're made from things called amino acids. Now, there are about 20 different amino acids, and they can have lots of different roles. So some proteins have a structural role, such as collagen in your skin or keratin in your hair and fingernails, which, like it says there, it's the same thing as a rhinoceros horn. So the stuff that makes your fingernails and makes your hair, we've got lots of that together. It's the same as rhinoceros horn. But then other proteins, so that's just structural to help you do things like the structure, maintain the structure or something. But some have a functional role, which means they carry out processes. They actually carry out a little job, and that could be enzymes or the antibodies in your body. And what they are is you get all your amino acids, and they kind of fold up when that gives them a different property. Okay, so they can, if they get heated up, they can lose this shape, which means they lose their property. So that is your carbohydrates, your lipids, and your proteins. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I want you to go to Google Classroom. You've got the session 2 booklet 1, which says biological molecules. And we're kind of looking at these learning objectives here, which is identifying the chemical elements present in carbohydrates, proteins, lipids. Hopefully, you might be able to know now. If you don't, then go back, watch it again, watch the video again, watch this video. But then we've got to describe the structure of carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids as large molecules made up from smaller basic units. What's starch and glycogen made from? What's protein made from? What is lipids? What are they made from? So I'm going to read through this and then look at the diagrams. And then I want you to complete the following tables. You just need to draw what starch or glycogen looks like, just very simply. Think about what they look like, maybe go back to the video. And then what a monomer is. So what does it look like? One unit of it. What elements is it present in? What food source? How is it used in the body? And then do the same for proteins. So what are proteins made from? Like if we had lots of proteins together, what would that look like? What would one by themselves? So maybe you want to have a look at some of these diagrams here. So if that's a protein molecule, that's an amino acid molecule. Maybe use some of those diagrams to help you. Okay, and then do the same for the lipids. What elements in there? What food source? And how is it used from the body? Then we don't need to you don't need to do anything else at the moment on this work booklet. So once you've finished doing that, I'd like you to go back to Google Classroom, and on there's a document called Biological Molecules, and you have got different links. When you click on those, it will take you through to BBC Bitesize. It tells you a little bit about each thing. I'm going to read through that now. If you've got a VPN, you could probably watch these videos, but if you haven't, it probably won't allow you, because I think you do need to be in the UK to watch them, but you can read through this information that's on here. I don't think you can try that video. It may not work. Some of them will, some of them won't. And then read through. And then at the bottom, you've got a quick quiz. Now, I've done this quick quiz before, so I've got a result there. And then what I want you to do is either use the snipping tool. So with the snipping tool, if you don't know how to find snipping tool, just press the little window box at the bottom and type in snipping tool, and the snipping tool will come up. And you can then just snip around your results. So you just cut that out there. And then what I'd like you to do